Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. Amma ba'd, fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Last week, we kind of summarized the opinions supporting that Sayyidina Ishaq alayhi salatu wassalam could be the Zabih. And we also talked about the stronger opinion or the majority opinion which says that Isma'il alayhi salatu wassalam was categorically the Zabih. Now what happens, you go back to the history, you see that if something is consensus, something is ijma among the Sahaba, among the Tabi'een, among the Mufassirin, then you can call it categorical. But if there is difference of opinion about an issue between the Sahaba like Sayyidina Omar, like Sayyidina Abu Bakr, like Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, and Abdullah ibn Masu'd, Abdullah ibn Umar, and then you've got the difference of opinion among the Tabi'een, the successors, and also among the Mufassirin, like half of the Mufassirin on one side and the other half on the second side. You cannot say there is a consensus or this opinion is categorical opinion. Remember one thing, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to say something categorical, He would have not left any room for anybody to doubt this issue. He would have said, Zabih Sayyidina Isma'il, or Zabih Sayyidina Ishaq alayhi salatu wassalam. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves the door open for interpretation, and even in the context does not say anything precise, accurately, categorical, it tells you that either He does not want this issue to be a big issue, or He does not care much about who is the Zabih by name. To Him, the moral of that story is more important than the persons, than the dates, than the places. I mean, whenever He wants to say something specified location, He says, بِبَكَّةَ مُبَارَكًا وَهُدًى لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Kaaba, He mentions the name of جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الْكَعْبَةَ الْبَيْتَ الْحَرَامَ. Whenever He wants to specify a location, الْأَرْضِ الْمُقَدَّسَةَ الَّتِي بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا. Whenever He wants to locate some person in history, a historical person, He says Musa, Isa, Dawood, Sulaiman. Am I clear? Whenever He wants to talk about the specific bashara, فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِإِسْحَاقَ وَمِنْ وَرَاءِ إِسْحَاقَ يَعْقُوبَ, He specifies the name as well as the locations. Now, if He has left it in the Qur'an, and Prophet ﷺ has not discussed something categorically by name, by location, in the authentic ahadith of Rasulullah ﷺ, then it means that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to Rasulullah ﷺ, this thing does not mean as you said. What is the point? Whether Zabih alayhi salatu wasalam is Ismail or Zabih is Ishaq, for us both of them are the sons of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. And from Islamic perspective, la nufarriqu bayna ahadim min rusuli. We do not differentiate that this is the more superior prophet and this is more what? Afdal or no. That fadl comes because of the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because of nubuwwah. Nubuwwah is the same because God is the same and His message is the same, and the moral of that message is also the same. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that al-anbiya ikhwatun li'allat, ummahatuhum shatta wa abuhum wahid. That all the prophets, they are, you can call it like stepbrothers. Their mothers are different, like Shara'i, or you can call it the laws which were given to them, they are different. Wa abuhum wahid, but their father, the source of their law, their theology, their morality is the same, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, I would say that if you go back to the historical accounts of what happened, you will see that at the back of this discussion, who is the true Zabih, there are some historical conflicts, territorial conflicts, and also I would say cultural differences. Jews were there before Muslims came, and they have claimed that they are the children of Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam, and they have either problem or they have conflicts with the Arabs who are in Mecca, Medina, in the Arabian Peninsula, the Arabs who used to call themselves the children of Ibrahim through Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam. So this kind of conflict, this kind of boasting, this kind of competition is taking place. And don't forget that the Jews have got a written book. They've got the Torah, which has been there for 3,000 years before the Arabs came. And now the Jews, they boast their superiority, that these are the people of book, Ahlul Kitab. These are the people who have got the messengers, because Ishaq, Yaqub, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, Musa, and all of them, they are from what? The lineage of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. They are also the people who claim that their blood is sacred because they do not marry anybody outside their own tribe, their own lineage. So they believe that their blood is pure. This is the blood of the prophets. And they also believe that the new prophet who is going to be the Messiah is going to be coming from their lineage, and that Messiah is going to come and make them dominant all over the world. The Arabs, who are in majority, they are living in the Arabian Peninsula. They believe, no, we are also superior because we come through Prophet Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam, who is also the son of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, these people, the Jewish people, because to them the concept of covenant, that God made the covenant with Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and promised him that he will give him the whole land from Nile to Euphrates, that he will increase the number of children of Ibrahim to the extent that if people are able to count the particulars of sand, the articles of sand, then they will be able to count the children of Ibrahim or Ibrahim. And also that God will bless him with the land which is southward, eastward, northward, westward, you name it. And the third portion of the covenant is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or God promised that people, the kings, will be blessed and honored by your children, which means that kings will not be able to become kings until they are blessed by your children. Now this covenant is based upon what? Now it could be, okay, if you say this is the covenant, then what about the children of Ibrahim who are also the Arabs? They say no. This covenant is only with Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam, because Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam is from the father Ibrahim and from his cousin Sarah, who is from that high family. Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam is from Hajara, who to them was the daughter of a pagan. So they differentiate between the Jews and the Gentiles. So Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam to them comes through the lineage of two Jewish people, two Hebrews, Abraham and Sarah. Now what is the meaning of Hebrew? Hebrew means, in Hebrew language, the ones who crossed over. Now it is Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and it is Sayyida Sarah along with Sayyidina Lut alayhi salatu wasalam. They left what we call Mesopotamia of that time, which is present day Iraq, went to Syria, from there to Palestine. And if they have to go to Palestine, they have to cross the Jordan River. So those people who will come to the land of Canaan by crossing over, these are called al-Ibriyin. That's why even, Abara, when you, Ubur, even in Urdu language we say Ubur, So Ibriyin or Hebrews, which is the translation of Ibriyin or Ibraniyin into English, means the one who crossed over. So the children of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and the the people of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, they were not called Egyptians, they were called what? Hebrews or al-Ibraniyin. You have to do these things by means of historical analysis. When the Hebrews, they came and they settled at the time of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam in Egypt. And because Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is a wise prophet, he's also, you can call it, a minister in the government. Therefore, and the Hebrews, the children of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, these are the people who are people of what? Studies, people of spirituality, because they are the children of prophets. Better than those pagans who are worshipping so many gods and Pharaoh in Egypt. So these are the people who are educated, they are part of the elite class, and they are also God-conscious people, so they got a lot of respect in Egypt. But they are minority. When the Hebrews, they become successful, the local people got envious of them, jealous of them. That's where they took their businesses and changed them into slaves. So there is a demarcation line between Hebrews and the original or native Egyptians. Am I clear? Now, this is playing out. Oh no, oh Arabs, your mom was Hajara, who was an Egyptian, who was pagan. She does not come from the lineage of the prophets. Am I clear? Actually, she was a slave girl. And don't forget, a Jari'a or a slave girl in the Arabic context is not equal to the free woman. Even the Qur'an differentiates between what? Ma malakat aymanuhum, a Jari'a, and the one who is what? Hurra, the free lady. So, two cultures, two tribes, two nations, they are boasting about their superiority. They are trying to make a place in the society. I am superior because I am the son of Sayyidina Ibrahim through Sayyida Sarah, who was a free lady from the sacred lineage. And even if you claim that you are the children of Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam, you cannot be equal to us because your mom was a bondage woman, Sayyida Hajra. And a bondage woman cannot be equal to a free woman. So even if you are the children of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, you do not carry the same kind of blood. Now why? Because the blood comes from the mother, the sperm can come from the father. So now, as you know, there is a rule in the Jewish religion, or in, you can say, Talmud, or Jewish fiqh, that the Jewish lineage does not come from the father. It comes from the mother, because the transfer of blood comes through whom? Because the child is in the womb of the mother, gets everything from the mother, but maybe getting chromosomes or maybe some genes, and you can call it from the father. So therefore, this boasting, this conflict is playing out in what goes on after that, even at the time of Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in. Those people who do not believe in the superiority of the Jews and want to contradict what they are claiming, that we are the superior people, the people of covenant, the people who are originally given the promise of the land, of superiority, of blessing to the whole world, it is us. So those who really feel that this is, there's nothing in the Qur'an which is proving that, are holding fast to the opinion, no. Even your argument that it is Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam is nothing in the Qur'an. So for them, they are taking the context of the ayat of the Qur'an and saying, no, Zabih alayhi salatu wasalam is Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam and not Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. Same thing happens after that, remember in the time of Umayyad and Abbasid, Jews, Christians, they are playing a vital role in the Muslim empire. They've got equal rights. They are giving the status of a dhimmi, the person who pays the dhimma or jizya and becomes equal to the Muslim citizens of the state, because Muslims pay zakat, Muslims participate in the defense of the country by serving in the military, Jews and Christians, they say we are not Muslims, so it is not required of us to be drafted to the Muslim military. Even nowadays, what happens? If the government wants to draft many of the Muslims, Hindus, Jews, Christians, they will come up with the religious reason that our religion does not allow us to fight. Am I clear? So in the same fashion, they come up with this sense that we do not want to be drafted. When the jihad is declared by the caliph, when the jihad becomes incumbent, then everybody who is capable has to go out. They say, we are Jews, we are Christians, okay. They would say that the blood comes from the mother, and the mother is Sayyidah Sarah. And whose mother is Sayyidah Sarah? She is the mother of Ishaq alayhi salatu wassalam. So therefore, as you discuss the modern issue, whether the blood comes from the mother or the father is something different. But majority of the doctors even will say that a child gets the proper nourishment from the mother more than the father. There's a difference of opinion among the doctors whether the true blood comes from the mother or the father, or it shares the qualities of both of them. But still, this is what is an understanding. So to them, a Jewish mother and a Gentile mother, there's a lot of difference between them. So this is playing out in the discussion even among the Umayyad and among the Abbasid period. Believe me, there are strong opinions among the Muslims which talk about Sayyidina Ishaq alayhi salatu wassalam. I mentioned the name of Ibn Jari'r al-Tabari. Imam al-Tabari is not only the chief of the Mufassirin, he is also maybe among the first Muslim historians. He was Allama in himself. So he strongly argues that from the Qur'anic context and from the authentic Hadith context, there's nothing which will prove either Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam or Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. But he says, based upon my opinion and based upon the opinion of Tabi'in and Sahaba, I prefer, and he goes even to the extent of something categorical opinion, that from the Qur'anic context, from the Hadith of Rasulullah, it is Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. Now you go back on the other side, Imam Ibn Kathir. Among the later Mufassirin, Imam Ibn Kathir is the top, but does not come close to the authority of Ibn Jari'r al-Tabari. But he himself, in his own right, he is the great scholar of Hadith as well as Tafsir. And then you have got Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullah alayh, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayh, Imam al-Shanqiti, and among the modern ones, Imam al-Ulusi, the one who wrote Ruh al-Ma'ani. All of them, they go on the other side. They say, no, it is Sayyidina Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam, and they go to the categorical opinion from the same ayat, from the same ahadith. Now, if you go back and you analyze both sides, with all honesty, you don't see that there is categorical arguments for this group, and there are categorical arguments for this group. It's a very subjective issue. When this group gives the context, they try to interpret the context from their perspective. When the second group comes with the context, they also explain it from their own perspective. But with all honesty, you don't see both of them having any categorical arguments or proof from within the Quran. Now this group, when they look at the ahadith, they become also subjective, because these ahadith are not in Sahih al-Bukhari or in al-Muslim. They are in other parts of the hadith, where sometimes a weaker hadith is also presented or mixed up with authentic ahadith. So they see problem with the ahadith quoted by this group. For instance, the famous hadith which is narrated by al-Hakim, Ana ibn Zabihain, I am the son of two slaughtered or two Zabih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The hadith is narrated by Muawiyah bin Sufyan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that one time I'm sitting in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and a Bedouin came and said, Ya Rasulullah, we are suffering from famine, our crops are not doing well, our cattle are thirsty and hungry, and you are the son of two Zabihain. Be generous to me and give me something. The Prophet ﷺ laughed and gave him something. Now, Amir Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala and the number of other Sahabi, they say, a Bedouin comes and says, you are the son of two slaughtered, sons or two slaughtered people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Walam yunkiru. Rasulullah sallam did not refuse the word Ibn Zabihain and did not say, you are wrong, I am not. And actually in one of the other hadiths, there are so many hadiths in which he said, Ana Ibn Zabihain, I am the son of two slaughtered servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now the other group says, come on guys. Number one, this hadith, when the people who narrated it, they said, Gharib jiddan. This hadith is very gharib. Why? It is very strange hadith. Because such and such person who narrated this hadith is very weak, or is matruk al-hadith, his hadith is not accepted. And why the people in Sirah accepted it? Because it's not requiring any requirement from you, do this one and don't do this one. This is halal, this is haram. And in the fada'il, in the virtuous issues, you accept things which you do not accept in the fiqh. That does not mean that this hadith is authentic. This whole story that Abdul Muttalib, he wants to be part of the Kaaba construction, but Quraysh, they are not giving him the equal right because he has got only one son, Harith. He makes the nazar, he takes the qasam, oath, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses me with 10, I will give one of them as the zabh, as the sacrifice for the sake of God. So when he was blessed with 10 children, he threw the fall, Qur'an, and the Qur'an fell upon Abdullah, the father of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he wanted to slaughter the son, but then instead of the son, slaughtering the son, he gave 100 camels as expiation for his qasam and did not slaughter his son. So because Sayyidina Rasulullah sallam is the son of Abdullah, and who is the son of Sayyidina Isma'il, that's where Rasulullah sallam is called Ibn Zabihain. Now, to cut the long story short, number one, the hadith is weak. Number two, Abdullah was not slaughtered by his father. He slaughtered 100 camels. It is not like Sayyidina Isma'il. Isma'il was replaced by a lamb by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not with the intention of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Am I clear? Because when I say, no, there are no two Zabihain, because Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam was the really Zabih, if we say, and Abdullah was not the Zabih because his father changed the mind and gave 100 camels instead of what? Slaughtering his son. They say, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaced Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam with a lamb, and in the same fashion, Abdul Muttalib replaced his son with, so you call Sayyidina Isma'il Zabih, and why don't you call Abdullah Zabih? But there's difference. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, when he is slaughtering, he knows that he is slaughtering his son. And he does not know when he has slaughtered the son that whether he has slaughtered the lamb or the son. It is only when he opens his eyes, he figures out and he's just astonished that the son is standing, and it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who replaced Sayyidina Isma'il with the lamb. But here Abdul Muttalib is already making the mind. So you can't call Abdullah as the Zabih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, that hadith is weak from the riwayah, from the sanad, the what you call the chain of narrations, and it is also from the matan, or the content is also weak. It cannot be the authentic hadith, number one. Number two, when it comes to the issues about the other ahadith, for instance, that Rasulullah sallam has in authentic hadith told us that when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is ready to slaughter the son, now shaitan appears to him and first tests the father, and also before that he has tested the mother also. So Sayyidina Ibrahim throws the pebbles to him and yarjumuhu, stones him. 3 places, that's where we do Rami al-Jamarat. And they say, because those ahadith of Rasulullah are authentic, that shaitan tested Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, what? A stone shaitan. But there is no categorical hadith in which Sayyidina Rasulullah said, it is Isma'il or it is in Makkah. Am I clear? What Rasulullah said it that we are following the action of Sayyidina Ibrahim. I mean, if there was a clear-cut hadith that the act of slaughtering is taking place in Makkah or in Mina or in Arafat, then there is no other proof needed, because most of the Qur'anic text, they talk about one of the sons of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam coming to Makkah. رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us that son is Isma'il, because it is Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam and Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam who are constructing the Kaaba. Why? Because when they got done with Kaaba, that's why is يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ رَبَّنَا وَجَعَلْنَا مُسْلِمَيْنِ لَكَ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِنَا أُمَّةً مُسْلِمَةً لَكَ وَأَرِنَا مَنَاسِكَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. So Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam is not participating in the construction of Kaaba. It is Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, it is Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and even when they get done with the construction of Kaaba, both of them, they raise their hand, and the Quran makes it clear, taqabbal minna, from both of us. Okay? So if the Quran or the authentic hadith of Rasulullah sallam, they would say that the act of Zabha is taking place in the vicinity of Makkah, in the proximity of Baytullah al-Haram, which is Kaaba, or is taking place in Mina or Arafat, then there's no question asked. Then it must be Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. But in the hadith, Rasulullah sallam mentions the Rami al-Jamar, but he does not mention either the son or the place. Am I clear? And more astonishing than that, there is hadith narrated in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, in which we are told that Rasulullah sallam's authentic hadith, or according to those who believe in the opinion that Sayyidina Ishaq is the slaughtered one, they say that that hadith is authentic, and the hadith says Rasulullah sallam said that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Habib, Sayyidina Ibrahim got done with slaughtering Ishaq, and Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam was still going through pain when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam did such and such. Am I clear? So now, the word Ishaq over there in that hadith, some of them would say it's weak, but there is the name of Sayyidina Ishaq mentioned in the hadith. Even if that is weaker, that brings the question that it could be Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam, and Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is slaughtering Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam, and shaitan appears. Am I clear? So what I'm trying to say is that when you look at both sides of the arguments, there are some strength in this group, there are some strength in the other group. You may prefer one opinion over the other opinion based upon your cultural assumptions, based upon your likes and dislikes, based upon the strength of the argument from your subjective perspective. You cannot impose it as the Qur'anic opinion, as the authentic Rasulullah Sallam's opinion, or as the authentic Islamic opinion. You cannot say something, this is categorical Islamic opinion, that Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam is the only Zabih. Because then what are you going to do with Omar radiallahu ta'ala, Abdullah ibn Masu'd, Abdullah ibn Abbas, What are you going to do with all of those tabi'een and mufassirin like Ibn Jari'r al-Tabari and so many others? Are they not part of the opinion? Am I clear? So therefore, remember one thing, these issues, it seems, there were no issues or non-issues to the Quran. Quran does not seem to be participating in this whole debate. Who is superior and who is not superior? That's where the Quran did not want to bring the name of Sayyidina Isma'il or Sayyidina Ishaq in this context. Because for Quran, whether it is Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam or Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam, it does not matter. Both of them are the sons of who? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Quran does not give into this debate of who is superior, who is inferior. Let me explain a little bit more on this issue of Sayyidah Hajara, because this issue comes very often. That she was the bondage woman. She was the slave girl. That's where, Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam came from an inferior lineage. Come on, guys. Number one, in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are equal, whether the Egyptians or Syrians or the Iraqis. Number two, don't come and tell me that Sayyidah Hajara was the bondage woman and Sayyidah Sarah alayhi salatu wasalam came from the superior, somewhere elite class. Hajara comes from the house of Pharaoh. And who was the Pharaoh? He was the king of Egypt. The king of what? Kings. And actually, the story goes that, he wanted to, astaghfirullah, do something wrong to Sayyidah Sarah and couldn't do it. And as a gift, he gave his own daughter to serve Sayyidah Sarah. So, Sayyidah Hajara comes from elite class. Comes from where? From the house of Pharaoh, from the emperor's house. Now, she has been given as spiritual bondage and not the physical bondage as we talk about slavery. Am I clear? So she is spiritually, you cannot say that this one is superior, the other one is what? Inferior. Don't come back and say, oh, she was the slave girl, as if she does not know anything about what's going on. She has been brought up in the palace. So you cannot say, astaghfirullah, oh, Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam is inferior, but because he is also the son of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam from the lady who has been brought up in the palaces, who is the daughter of the emperor, and who has come from the elite class of the Egyptians.
How authentic is this saying she was the daughter of the...
Remember one thing, these things are not quoted in the Quran. These are most of the things which have been quoted in the Old Testament, which is the Jewish Bible, especially the book of Genesis. So, because Quran does not mention these things, so many of the Muslim scholars, they took those things from the Bible and they have interpreted the Quranic stories in accordance with their knowledge of the Hebrew Bible.
So it's in the Bible?
It is in the Bible. There is an Islamic principle that if something does not contradict the Quran and is present in the Bible, you can accept it to interpret the Quran or the Hadith of Rasulullah, because there is no inherent contradiction between the Quranic principles and what is in the Bible. If something is contradicting Quranic ayah, Quranic concept, Quranic axiom, or any authentic Hadith concept or information, you reject it. And if something is in the Quran and is also in the Bible, then you accept it as part of what? Your legacy. So, because the Quran does not come with the details of the wife of Sayyidah Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and the details about Sayyidah Hajara, and the details about Sayyidina Isma'il and Ishaq, where they come from. Am I clear? And these details are given in the Bible. So Muslim scholars did not have any objections to take them from there and explain the Quranic stories from that perspective. Then they became part of Islamic tafsir, because a scholar is explaining and he wants to explain the Quranic concept or a Quranic story, but he is explaining it to the common Muslims. And when you talk about just the moral lessons, abstracts, people do not like it. Even nowadays, stories and jokes and all of those things are incorporated so that people listen to the message. So the Muslim scholars, when they are explaining the verse of the Quran, as if something is from the Bible and it does not contradict the Quranic story, they will explain it. Now the students have written it from them, so they will say Ibn Jari'r al-Tabari or Ibn Kathir, they explain, so it becomes part of the tafsir. In the later generations, it became accepted. Ibn Kathir said it, such and such said it. It was only in the, say for example, 18th, 19th century, and even that before that, I would say Imam al-Zabih, he felt that there are a lot of Israeliyat, stories which are coming from the Jewish sources, Christian sources, which have been incorporated into the explanation of. And nowadays it has become a clear-cut science that you do not just depend upon those stories and say these are authentic Qur'anic stories. These were the stories which were incorporated from the Bible or from the Christian and Jewish sources to explain the Quranic stories, but they are not the basis of the Quran. Quran does not go into the details of history or names or the context. Quran wants you to go to the lessons themselves. Am I clear? Sometimes when you read these stories and you have heard it from your childhood, you accept them as, accepted assumptions. These are something which are already assumed that they are correct. But when you go back and you feel, no, Quran does not give the details, Hadith does not give the details, it becomes a challenge for many of the Muslims, because they have been learning about these stories, narrating these stories from their childhood as something which is accepted, musallamat. Then when they are challenged, they say, oh my goodness, whether our knowledge is wrong, then there are strong opinions, because nowadays, because of the conflicts, especially the territorial conflicts between the Jews and the Muslims, there's a lot of hatred going on both sides. So the same status, same situation which was happening at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu, Arabs and then the Jews, is happening nowadays. The Jews, they want to prove their superiority. They want to prove that their claims of having the divine right to own the land, which is the promised land, is their divine right. Now they want to use religion for the sake of political gains, which is, we are the children of Ibrahim, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God promised Ibrahim with the covenant. Now that covenant contains our blessing to the whole world, that we will be the source of blessing. That number two, the land will be given to us, and the land is specified from Nile to Euphrates, or from such and such, south, west, all of that. These boundaries are given in the Bible. Now that covenant comes to us through Ishaq or Isaac, as the Bible says it. So now for us to own that land is actually your religious right. You should support us, help us, and not fight us. You should actually live like Gentiles. As the rabbi said, Joseph, you remember that 92 years old rabbi, on one of the sacred days he came out, he says, Gentiles have got no right to exist except to serve the Jews. God has created them for that reason. So if they do not serve the Jews, then they have got no right to exist, because this is his understanding of Bible. So now, if God has created the Jews to rule that land, if he has made them the source of blessing to the whole world, if he has created you, the Gentiles, the Arabs, the Muslims, and the Christians, everybody, to serve the Jews, and you are fighting them, you are resisting them, you are going against God's, you will go to the hell. So you will be in the hell in this dunya, and you will be in the hell in the life to come. Am I clear? So all of these issues in Palestine, there's a lot of resentment. So now this opinion that no way, you don't have the covenant. That covenant does not come through Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. It comes through, even if there's any covenant, it comes through Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam. And it comes to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallam. It comes to the Muslims. Muslims are greater in number than you. We have got more kings, more countries than you. So that's where you see that the opinion has become so staunch. And it has become so difficult to open the mouth in the Muslim community and say, it could be Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam, because there is nothing in the Quran which categorically says about Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam. Oh my God, Muslims go up in arms, because they have heard the opinion of Ibn Kathir, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, Ulusi, all of those. And they have not even looked at the other options or the other arguments. So now the debate becomes very personal, very heated, and somehow as if, astaghfirullah, this is the Quranic opinion, the opinion of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallam, so it becomes the nightmare to challenge an established opinion. My point through all of this discussion is that there are equal arguments for Sayyidina Ishaq to be the slaughtered son, and there could be equal arguments for Sayyidina Isma'il to be the slaughtered son. Majority of the Muslim scholars, they have preferred Sayyidina Isma'il to be the slaughtered son, and there is great number of some very learned scholars, Tabi'in and Sahaba, who have preferred Sayyidina Ishaq to be. So to prefer one opinion over the other opinion as the categorical, the only Islamic opinion, will exclude many of the Sahaba, many of the Tabi'in, and also impose upon the Qur'an and upon the saying of Rasulullah sallam something which is not categorically there. Wa alaikum assalam. So therefore, you have got the right to choose this or that based upon your preference, but you do not have the right to deny the others the authentic Islamic opinion or the authenticity that that person is no more following the Quran or the Sunnah. And in the conclusion, after I discuss those arguments, I'm going to come and conclude the same thing, that guys, this does not matter to the Quran. Had it mattered to the Quran, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have said, no, Zabih alayhi salatu wasalam is Isma'il, because he mentioned Sayyidina Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam in a number of verses in the Quran. And he never said Zabihullah. He said min as-sabirin wa kana ya'muru ahlahu bis-salati waz-zakati wa kana 'inda rabbih mardiya, And then wajadnahu sabira ni'mal 'abd innahu awwab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned he was sabir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that he used to ordain his children and family about the salah and zakat. He could have said Isma'il, Zabihullah.
Sabir of what? Could it lead the same thing? Because he resisted, but he had sabr for, not being slaughtered.
Yes. This is an argument. This is an argument which Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah has given, following Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. He said that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Sayyidina Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam, he talks about his sabr. Innahu kana min as-sabirin. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the same term when it comes to the issue of slaughtering, because when Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam mentions, Ya bunayya inni ara fil manami anni asbahuk fanzur maza tara qala ya abati fa'al ma tu'mar satajiduni insha'allahu min as-sabirin, that if Allah willing, you will see me among the sabirin. So this is a typical title which is given to Sayyidina Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam in the Qur'an, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says he was among the sabirin. So therefore, the son which is being slaughtered over there is the sabirin, is among the sabirin. So therefore, the Quran proves that it is Isma'il alayhi salatu wassalam. There is a point. That Quranic title for Isma'il alayhi salatu wassalam is Sabir, or he is among the sabirin. And the son who is saying the promise that yes, I will be among the sabirin if you slaughter me, this is coincident. But the word Sabir has been used for Sayyidina Ayyub alayhi salatu wassalam, for all the prophets. Allah yuhibbu sabirin.
None of them were put to be slaughtered.
But that's what I'm saying. To jump from a title to that exactly it is Sayyidina Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam, you have to have an other proof, a lot more stronger proof than just the name. Because, all of the prophets were among the sabirin. Sayyidina Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam could be among the sabirin, the prophets. So you cannot just use one title and it's coincident and say, jump and know it is what? Sayyidina Ishaq or Sayyidina Isma'il. Now let's go back to one by one now. Again, I would like you to open the verses of the Quran. So I give you the context now. Let's go systematically with all the arguments. Okay, let's pick up the copies of the Quran. Let's go to Surah Safat. Surah Safat, ayah number 99. Let's go 98. Surah Safat, which is after Surah Yasin, and ayah number 98. Yes. فَأَرَادُوا بِهِ كَيْدًا فَجَعَلْنَاهُمُ الْأَسْفَلِينَ. Now, in the Surah Safat, what's number, say for example, 95, 96 and onward, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the presence of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in his own homeland, where he crushes those idols, breaks those idols. Now those people, they have conspired against Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and they want to burn him. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قَالُوا ابْنُوا لَهُ بُنْيَانًا فَأَلْقُوهُ فِي الْجَحِيمِ. Make the furnace for him, burn the fire, and send him to Jahannam. فَأَرَادُوا بِهِ كَيْدًا. Then they decided to have some conspiracy against him. فَجَعَلْنَاهُمُ الْأَسْفَلِينَ. So we made them what? The losers, the people who were among the asfal. Now what Ibrahim ﷺ says, وَقَالَ إِنِّي ذَاهِبٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينَ. That I am going to go to what? إِلَىٰ رَبِّي, to my Lord. سَيَهْدِينَ, he will guide me. رَبِّ هَبْلِي مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Now what is the context? He is still, when he is leaving his homeland, he is making the dua, رَبِّ هَبْلِي مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. Ya Allah, bless me from the righteous children. فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. Thus, we say it in Urdu, thus in English, as a result, consequently, resultantly, فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ, we gave him the bashara, بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ, with a forbearing son. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ, consequently, fa لِلتَّعْقِيب, as a result of that. لَمَّا بَلَغَ, بَلَغَ هَذَا الْوَلَدْ. This walad, this child whose bashara or glad tidings we have given to Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, when he reached ma'ahu, with him, as-sa'ya, to the age of puberty or work. Now there is an argument here, argument for those people who say it is Sayyidina Ishaq alayhi salatu wasalam. They say, you guys come and you say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with son Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam, and you quote the Bible and you say that because Sayyida Sarah became jealous, so Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam had to abandon Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam and his mom Hajara to where? To Makkah. You are the one who say that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam came only 3 times to Makkah. 2 times he came, he said he could not find Ismail because Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam has gone hunting, taking care of his family. So he comes and says, one time he says, fix, change the ataba of your door. Change the main column of your door, which means change your wife. So Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam understood the message, he divorced his wife. Second time Sayyidina Ibrahim comes and he says, the ataba is fixed, it's very good, keep it. Which means keep your wife. And third time he comes to slaughter him. Now he is not with him. Qur'an says, فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ. When that child became with Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam to the age of what? Work. So Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam has not brought up Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, it's Sayyida Hajara. That child which is going to be slaughtered does not stay very long with Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam if that child happens to be Ismail. Am I clear? Who is staying with him? It's Ishaq. According to your understanding, because you are saying Ibrahim comes only 3 times to see Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam is in Makkah. He is growing up with his mom and not with Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Is the point clear?
No, it's not clear.
Okay. Say that the incident of visiting for the sacrifice was after the incident of the wine. It was way before that, when Ismail was too young, isn't it?
Okay. Let's go back to the argument, sir. Okay.
Just to add to his concern, how authentic the story of that the Prophet of Allah, like Ibrahim, He just like, he have his son, he abandoned his son. He traveled this extensive travel, who knows how long it took him to get there to go see his son, and he doesn't find the son there, And as a sudden, he just like to travel 3 months to go see your son, and the son is there, he was out hunting. You go travel 3 months back, and you don't even give yourself a chance to see the son that you traveled to see. The whole story is not setting very well.
If you remember my khutbah about it, and I even mentioned in the last khutbah about this whole issue, that the way sometimes we have these traditional stories about Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, it makes Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam the most irrational,
Yes.
the most erratic, unresponsible or irresponsible father.
You divorce your wife.
You just because one of your wife is jealous, for God's sake, put her in the next city. Don't abandon her in the desert. If you cannot just withstand your one wife, how are you going to withstand the pressure of all of those people who are killing you?
That's right.
Am I clear? I mean, the one who was not afraid of Nimrud and the whole country and is willing to throw himself in the fire but not compromise the issue of God and morality, MashaAllah, cannot withstand his wife's pressure and abandons her outside there in Mecca. Guys, is the wife stronger than God and Nimrud? What do you mean? Ji.
But then what was the reason for Hazrat Hajra to run where we do Sahi now? I mean, she is running out of food, she is alone, she's with a baby, she does not have any water. If she had like so many things around and people around, why would she do that?
That could be also possible because, to me, whatever Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ is doing under the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make Kaaba the sanctuary for the people who are on this side, and Bayt al-Maqdas the sanctuary for the people who cannot make it all the way to Kaaba because of that traveling restrictions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ to take his son and go live at a place where now Kaaba is. This is a place where it's desert. Now, even when if Ibrahim ﷺ is there but there's no food, see, the Hajra can run. She does not have to run just because she is by herself, or maybe Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ is going around collecting the wood to make Kaaba or to make a house for them, and she finds there's no food, she is running. So her running does not require that she is abandoned. Am I clear? So there are some of these fill-ins which are traditional fill-ins. The story is there. But unfortunately, these fill-ins, because they come from us, the human beings, they make Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ look like a very cruel man. And make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala look like a very cruel, God. Because he wants Ibrahim ﷺ to leave his newborn son with his young wife, to the wolves, without any help, without any food, without anything, and not come back until Sayyidina Isma'il is at the age of what? Marriage. If you follow those traditional, understanding, that after that Ibrahim ﷺ comes and Isma'il ﷺ has already married. I don't think he was going to marry when he was 13 or 14. I mean, that story does not make sense. He comes and says, change your wife. Because the wife did not allow Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ to come inside. I mean, such an irrational story. Somebody come, as my brother said, after traveling 2-3 months, and the wife, he's a stranger. He has not been introduced to her as the father-in-law. She should just allow anybody to come inside? Does he have got the revelation that he is the Prophet of Allah, father of Isma'il? So if she says, okay, I'll give the message, but you can't come in. She is doing the right thing. Then would it make Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ upset and, okay, give the message, change the column of your door? And somehow Isma'il ﷺ gets the revelation, this is my father, he has told me to divorce, and he just divorces for the sake of his father, his wife, without any mistake from the wife. What are the messages which we are conveying? Second time he comes, and because the wife allows him to come inside, so he sits. But as the brother said, he does not wait for his son. He just comes and gives the message, okay, she is good now. Goes back. What are you talking about? A crazy man, astaghfirullah? Third time he comes and says, my son, let me slaughter. He's already married with one, with two. Now he remembers to slaughter him. Am I clear? Am I clear?
Yes.
Sometimes these traditional stories.
But these are only stories, I mean.
Huh?
It's only stories, I mean. It's not authentic hadith.
No, but they are part of our tradition. They have become part of our books of tafsir, and sometimes they are part of our books of hadith also. And Qisas al-Anbiya, all of them are filled with that. Now those people, Qisas al-Anbiya is written by whom? By Ibn Kathir rahmatullah, who is a mufassir, who is a muhaddis. Now these books of seerah, they are written by not only common people, they are written by Ibn Hisham, Ibn Ishaq, Waqidi, you know. So what happens is sometimes, because I believe that in the context or in the culture where they were living, there were some established fact. So some of the wa'idhin, some of the popular preachers, they incorporated these kind of stuff and they started filling in, and those fill in, they became standards. And when they became standard, nobody asked the question, and that's where our deen has become what? Filled with superstitions. This is the way I was told in my childhood, and with all honesty, as a child, it used to bother me. It used to bother me that if my father will abandon me like that and will treat my mom like that, would I love that father? So I had a lot of questions about Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ as my childhood, and my father always figured out that he is a troubled child because he always comes up with these kind of things. And that's where, you know, if you go back to my thesis, PhD thesis I've written, he will always look for some teachers, some people who can answer these questions, because with all honesty, at that time you don't think, but sometimes when you think about these things, you've got big questions. How could, you know, Sayyidina Ibrahim do all of these things? But the answer was, oh, because he depended upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have made the arrangement for the food, for everything, and Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam knows that his son or his wife was going to be secure, it was not sacrificed, and it didn't make sense to me. That was the end of the questions. Okay, fine. It seemed like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a plan, so he would not abandon. So this was an issue of tawakkul and trust.
Because Hajar asked him when he was leaving that, is this the order of Allah? And he said yes. So it was whole plan. I mean, that's what we heard the story.
My question is that when he is leaving, this question can be asked even after he has settled her, made the house for her, made her live there around with other people, you know. And when she is going, this question could be asked by her, I am alone with my son, you know. And he says, I'm leaving it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
But there was no water there. How come people were already living there?
Now, this is all of our assumptions, because this is the explanation of the word zam. That does not mean that there was no other human being living there. Am I clear? So there might have not been water at that place. So that Zamzam could be because of Sayyidina Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam. As I've just told you, that sometimes the gist of the story is there, but the way we, you know, explain it with all of these details, unless those details come from the Qur'an or Hadith, they could be accepted or rejected. So for me, it is difficult to accept that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam would be such a cruel father who will leave his son and wife alone in the desert. Astaghfirullah, without food, without water, without preparation, and will not even check on her after that, because he is so scared of his other wife, Sarah, alayhi salatu wasalam. And then the only time he comes, now he is not scared of coming back to tell Sayyidina Ismail, divorce your wife. I mean, does a prophet got only one thing left to ask his son to divorce his wife? No other job, astaghfirullah. He traveled 2-3 months coming, 2-3 months going, just divorce, and then comes and does not even check on his son. If he can travel 3 months, he can sit over there for 2 weeks to wait for his son. And in the darkness, the son is not going to be hunting all the night. Am I clear? He's going to come back sometime. Or for a week.
And also, since this is the first son, he long-awaited son, you think he would love them, not left them alone.
I mean, my question is, if something comes authentically from Rasulullah sallam or from the Qur'an, we can find explanation for it. If something is not in the Qur'an and something is not in the hadith of Rasulullah sallam, then bringing these illogical stories to fill in does not make sense. So therefore, it is time for us, the Muslims, to deconstruct these superstitions which are clung to our religion, to our books of tafsir, to the way we take religion, and we have to rescue our religion from these superstitious, these kind of preachers who have got no knowledge, no logic, and they keep on making our religion look like a heap of superstition. Yeah.
Authentically from the Prophet about, when Ibrahim came back to Ismail, what is the authentic hadith?
Even Imam Ibn Kathir rahmatullah alayh, he has raised this issue that I can't believe that a prophet like Sayyidina Ibrahim will abandon his son and will not check on them and leaves his young wife. If anybody rapes her, if anybody does something wrong to her, who is responsible? Am I clear? This is not the word of Sayyidina of Ibn Kathir, but he says, he leaves his young wife over there alone. This is not prophetic. So what he says is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he can provide the buraq to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallam to go in 1 second from Makkah to Jerusalem, he can give the buraq to Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam to come from, be in the morning in Jerusalem and in the evening in Makkah, because the Prophet will not abandon his son and his wife. But that's where I am getting my theory from all of those kind of conjectures which are in the books of tafsir and somewhere, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a plan for the two sons of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, as I mentioned in the khutbah. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is the model of rationalism, logic, love. So he is spending some time with Sayyidah Sarah, some time with Sayyidah Hajra, not because of the fear of Sayyidah Sarah or the jealousy of Sayyidah Sarah, but because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got the plan for both of them. So Sayyidina Isma'il alayhi salatu wasalam is being brought up in Makkah, Sayyidina Ishaq over there, and now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make the entire people as the Millat Ibrahim. So Kaaba is what? The place of worship. Jerusalem is the place of worship. And these are the results of the sacrifices of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Am I clear? And that's what the Quran wants us to understand. When he says, Rabbana inni askantu min zurriyati biwadin ghayri dhi zar'in inda baytika al-muharram. Quran did not say that there were no human beings over there. The Quran says, Wadin ghayri dhi zar'in. A valley where there is no zara', when there is no agriculture. Now, it is our explanation that, biwadin ghayri dhi zar'in does not mean that there are no human beings over there. There's no agriculture there. Even nowadays, there's no agriculture in Makkah. رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. Rabbana, Ya Allah, make them follow the salah and make the hearts of the people lean towards them. It means that there are people. What he's making the dua that, Ya Allah, make those people be kind to them. So if there are no people, what is the dua he's making? From the Quranic context, I'm feeling that there could be human beings over there. رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْزُقْهُم مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. Now, even this is so difficult for Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam to leave a son even for a few hours, or wife, without رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ تَعْلَمُ مَا نُخْفِي وَمَا نُعْلِنُ وَمَا يَخْفَى عَلَى اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. That in what is in my heart. I'm worried. One is there, I'm really worried. It could be translated in that fashion. It could be understood in that fashion. That what is hidden in my heart. رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ تَعْلَمُ مَا نُخْفِي وَمَا نُعْلِنُ وَمَا يَخْفَى عَلَى اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي وَهَبَ لِي عَلَى الْكِبَرِ إِسْمَاعِيلَ وَإِسْحَاقَ But I am grateful that in my older age you blessed me with Isma'il and Ishaq. Inna Rabbi la sami'u du'a. And then he says, Rabbi ja'alni muqim as-salati wa min zurriyati. Allah make them the people of salah. And yes.
Sheikh, I like this analogy that he just like basically he had one son in Mecca and one son in Jerusalem, and subhanallah, these are the two pillars of faith translated later on. The question I have, what evidence do we have this story about, it makes a lot more sense that there is the Bayt al-Muharram there might be people living there, and he left his wife and her baby son there, and yeah, they can live, within a smaller community. That's not a problem. But what do you say about the story of say Sayyidina Hajar running back and forth, and as a sudden this Zamzam well erupted from under the baby's feet,
My question is that
part of the Hajj ritual nowadays.
Yes.
If there is a community there, I'm very sure there is water there. Otherwise, they won't be able to make it. So.
But remember one thing, that even that story of Sayyidina Hajra running, it's not a Quranic story.
I know.
Okay, it is part of the Hadith traditions, and even if there are people, there's scarcity of water. It used to be in Mecca that throughout the day people will have 1 or 2 glasses of water because of the scarcity. Okay, they have to bring the water from all over. So now, say for example, the baby, it's hot, baby needs more water than everybody else. Am I clear? So her running between the hills of Safa and Marwa for the sake of a thirsty child does not exclude that there are no other human beings. Am I clear? I mean, mom goes, I don't want to use the word crazy, but for the sake of children, goes through anxiety, and she is running. Am I clear?
Maybe there's a small source of water. She's running back and forth, getting some of that.
All of those things are possible. What I am denying is that Sayyidina Ibrahim ﷺ leaving just an innocent child and a young wife alone without a house, in the desert, and just leaving them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without making the proper preparation. This is what I am denying.
So, I don't see why that should be a problem. Somebody who can kill, who can slaughter his son, and there's no doubt about that. It's in the Qur'an. Somebody who can do that. Why can he not leave them in the desert based on the command of Allah?
Remember one thing, that even in that commandment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not directly ask him, "Oh Ibrahim, slaughter your son." He just saw the ishara. He is out of his own obedience, going far beyond the call. So when it comes to that one, that is the symbolic gesture of killing or slaughtering what he loves the most for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because over there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see that the one who is now starting to share the love, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the attention, whether that is going to be sacrificed for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not, number one. Number two, when it comes to the issue of the child and the wife, and there are certain moral issues connected with it. Am I clear? So when you bring all of those moral issues, yes, there's one thing, the trust upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Habib alayhi salatu wasalam even asked the Bedouin who just left the camel outside and said, "I trust, I left." He said, "No, tie the camel first and then put the trust upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." I don't see Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam not tying the camel and just abandoning the child or the wife, because if it would have come from the authentic hadith of Rasulullah sallam, then I could have gone to the other aspect and said, yes, he is making this sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if something does not come from the Qur'an, does not come from the hadith of Rasulullah sallam, Qur'an says, "I am leaving my askantu min zurriyati." Sukoon, that I made them live, is from maskan. I have housed them there. Ma'man. Maskan. Rabbana inni, he did not say, "Rabbana inni taraktu min zurriyati." I abandoned them. Rabbana inni askantu min zurriyati. بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ. The Qur'an uses the word غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ, the non-cultivated valley. Does not use the abandonment or there's no human beings. Actually, رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْزُقْهُم مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. There are samarat, there are people, there is salawat taking place. And these things cannot be happening without or proper, you can say, the human habitation over there. Yes, my brother.
In your khutbahs and all through the history, when Prophet Ibrahim and Hazrat Isma'il alayhi salam built the Kaaba and God commanded, call people to pray, there is nobody around, who should I call? So that said there was nobody around. And God said, okay, I'll bring them. Your duty is to call, my duty is to bring the people in.
Now, if you go, yes, sure. وَإِذْ بَوَّأْنَا لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ مَكَانَ الْبَيْتِ أَلَّا تُشْرِكْ بِشَيْءٍ وَطَهِّرْ بَيْتِيَ لِلطَّائِفِينَ وَالْقَائِمِينَ وَالرُّكَّعِ السُّجُودِ وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا. And make the azan among the people. وَأَذِّنْ فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ. Now, it could be, he has said, Ya Allah, there are few people over here who is going to come for Hajj. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say only make the adhan. He said, وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا. Make the announcement among the people. But those people who are not there, their souls were communicated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But those people who were around must have heard from Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam.
Later on, they will come.
Come from different areas, different places.
Then, I mean, but later on.
Yes.
Sheikh, what I don't understand is like when in the verse it says, إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ. So the bayt is there already. And in a different verse, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ الْقَوَاعِدَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ. So it's not clear in my mind, was the Kaaba was present prior to that time, and if yes, then what did he build with Isma'il?
There are all possibilities that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam has brought Sayyidina Isma'il and Sayyidina Hajira, and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed him the place of Kaaba, and according to some traditions, which could be right or not, that Kaaba is not built by Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. It was already there.
Existing.
And the Quran says, وَإِذْ لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ مَكَانَ الْبَيْتِ, that we showed him the place of the house, which means the house was there, it could have been demolished after that. Now Ibrahim ﷺ re-erected it, reconstructed it. He reconstructs it with the help of Sayyidina Isma'il, that's what the Quran says. Now after he has built, that's where he settles his children over there. Because Quran presumes that the Kaaba is already there when he makes the decision of settling his family there. عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ. So when he makes them يَسْكُنْ فِي هَذَا الْمَكَامِ بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ الْبَيْتِ مَوْجُودٌ وَالنَّاسُ مَوْجُودُونَ. So this is what is the Quranic context. That house is built, people are around, and that's where Ibrahim ﷺ makes his Ismail and Sayyidina Hajira live there, and makes the dua, Ya Allah, make them do the salah and make the people respect them and their heart towards, and give them the blessings of Samarat.